Hi, everybody. I'm delighted to be joined today by Bill Boorman, who is going to talk to us about recruiter enablement. And I've
Yeah,
got a couple of specific questions for Bill. Bill, quick introduction in case I don't think there's anybody watching this who doesn't know you, but just in case.
there might be. I'm an advisor to technology companies, so I worked with Adam at Candidate ID from quite early days and went through that journey. But I advise about 6 technologies and marketplaces on product, and then I commentate on the market, and I do a lot of work around workflow and actual working practice inside global hiring organisations.
Great. What's recruiter enablement to you?
I think exactly what it says. It's enabling recruiters to get on and do their jobs, right? I think the challenge is around us redefining what that job is. So if we look at the way in which the work has been done for a long time, probably 80% of the work has been done on things like searching and matching messages and so on, and really everything top of the funnel, primarily in attraction, to be fair. Once people are in, there's a little bit of management of the process, but not a lot of work. And I think we're now in a position where we're rethinking what that might look like. One, if we could take a lot of what's been done manually and automate it, and more we're getting the technology that enables us to do that. So what I really think recruiter enablement is enabling people to concentrate on recruiting rather than purely attraction.
Yeah, I think that's right. As I've studied this subject this year, what I've learned is that the traditional recruitment platforms that we use and we live in, like applicant tracking systems, they're great for managing workflows and things like that, but they're not really recruiter enablement solutions. And a lot of the other technologies that we use are fulfilling specific solutions for things like assessment or attraction.
Yeah,
And we've moved towards, like, we've got robot heads and we've got, avatars and things like that. But actually we don't actually have like a library of social media outreach messaging. And we don't have libraries of like basic stuff. Why have we skipped this in the move towards, more
there's a lot.
sophisticated things?
There's a lot of reason for that, really, Adam. When you look at it, right? So when you talk about the ATSs and so on, so the first thing is the historical route, and Candidate ID would be a great example of that with iSIMs. In that, point solutions are really features of a body, right? Things
Yeah.
which it's going to be integrated into something bigger, and the bigger piece is going to be the rails. That's where the actual work gets done.
Yeah.
And the problems individually are never big enough to try and solve them within the ATS, because there's too many other big
Yeah.
problems people are dealing with, right? And I talk to
Yeah.
founders of ATSs all the time about this particular challenge, in that fixing the component parts or the mechanics of the component parts is quite difficult. Therefore, it's usually a point solution that goes, yeah, there's a hole there, we can do that. You're doing that at the moment with recruiter enablement. There's many companies who are going, yeah, we can fix that bit, we can do the assessment, we can provide a video interview, we can do whatever we want. Now, when those features gain momentum from users and more people integrate them, and then the critical point is when that starts going into RFIs. Do you have, as a technology, do you have the recruiters listening in? That's kind of the buy-in process. I
Yeah.
should probably explain what that means. But it's the buy-in process of how technology is bought. Once that feature starts to become a critical and it starts to appear, that's where the organisation starts saying, right, we need to integrate it. And usually the best way to integrate that, it's a lot quicker to buy than it is to build. And you do that because partly it's technology, but actually more of the acquisition of a point solution is quite often about the methodology. It's not just any of those ATSs could build those things. They have tech teams that could,
Yeah. Yeah.
if that was the focus on the roadmap. But actually, to buy it means you're probably buying a best of breed. A good point solution is going to be a best of breed, and you're buying the capability. And what really, how you come to this conclusion, which is quite correct. There isn't too much technology about at the minute that does it in recruiting as does in, say, sales.
Yeah.
In sales or marketing marketplaces, there's far more advanced technology in terms of enablement. And support is probably a much better word than enablement. I think that hasn't yet been a priority. When I worked with Clinch and we built landing pages, that was a classic example. You know, we built beautiful landing pages which were content rich.
Yeah.
Companies bought them and then they said, why does our page look very good? We'd say, well, that's because you haven't got any content. Like you haven't got the images to draw from. You haven't got the content. You're not generating that. And the challenge then became, can you get enough content to actually deliver this, right? So I think what happens is you consider those types of technologies as being the rails. That's what delivers the stuff. You build the rails first and then you build the railway afterwards, right? And I think what you're coming at is, right now you can message lots of people, you can automate lots of things, you can have chatbots, you can have whatever you want. What are we going to put in there to do that? So that if you want to take a really simple example, right, look at job distribution. You know, I sit on the board of Volt, but if I go back to the history of Broadbean, which is, you know, just recently bought by Veritone, one of the best things, Kelly Robinson, who I speak with a fair bit, has been around the industry a long time. That was created to solve a simple problem, which was, as soon as we got job boards, believe it or not, that was only like 18, 20 years ago. As soon as we got job boards, recruiters were spending too long writing job ads because they had to do each one individually as an individual order. And someone came along and went, which was Kelly Robinson, and said, you know what, we could just find a bit of a technology way of delivering that ad to all the job boards and sign it in and placing the ad. We would actually save hours of time, and then the recruiters could get on with their job of recruiting, right? And that, for me, in its base form, is a simple example of where we're at. We're looking at it and saying, yeah, we need. There's lots of things we need. We've got the rails. We've got the point where we're going, well, we need to send an email here, and we're looking at our workflow, and the average workflow has about 96 steps, things that have to happen in sequence in order for a hire to happen. So we're looking at each of those stages and saying, well, we need to send an email here, and we need to put someone in a diary, and We've got the technology that does that, whether that's diary booking in system, video interview, assessment, all the other pieces that build up the modern kind of tech stack for a progressive hiring organization. What we haven't got is the actual pieces of work. You'll remember from Candidate ID, you know, we said we've got this, everyone was going, yeah, we love this nurture idea. We've got the technology to do it, but we don't necessarily know what to put in the 4 emails we need to send for the 4 touch points. And then we had to actually say, okay, we need to go away and I can remember having the meeting with you, and we kind of went, well, actually the solution is let's bring in some people to just write those emails and create them. And that was on quite a base level, because what organizations wanted was someone to come along and go, here's the technology, this is the distribution method, but actually this is the message, here you go.
That's right. So, like, on that subject of like creating content, recruitment is more content hungry than it ever has been, I think. And what's your comments around generative AI and its place within this?
Right. So I'm as won't surprise you. I'm running a lot of events at the moment, chat-a-thons, looking at generative AI, what we can do. And I feel like we've had 10 years of hype. Where we've talked about what we might be able to do. And I would compare this to when I first launched TRU, it was the beginning of social media. So a lot of the conversations we're having, we said, oh, we think we'll be able to do this with Twitter. We think we'll be able to do, you know, every stage we've kind of gone, we think we'll be able to do it. And then some people start actually doing it. And then you figure it out, and you get some technology that comes along that helps you with that, and you go on that journey. I feel like we're at that with generative AI now, which is the thing when it was social media was it was actually figuring out if this is the way and this is the channel where people are going to communicate, it wasn't any more about, first of all, we used to have a conference called Social Media in Recruitment.
Yeah.
And that was kind of going, how do we do recruitment with social media?
Yeah.
Actually, the real question was the other way around, which was actually social. It's going to touch everything that we do, every workflow, whether it's messaging, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we are with generative AI, of saying, actually, the big step that's going to come from generative AI is that we're going to move into every interface will be conversational.
Mm-hmm.
That's the major change that I believe, because we're now at the point where the limitations of the chatbots that we worked with, I was at JobPal and so on, they were great products, but we very much had to build the conversation and the workflow because the massive language models weren't there. There wasn't the taxonomy or the context or the understanding. So we had to build those workflows, and that was really hard work. We had to drag it out. What questions do we want to answer? What conversations do we want to have? Now I think we're in much more open space where conversation, it will become the norm. And if you don't have a conversation in your workflow, no, who's going to fill it for me? And I think ultimately that might begin for the first time genuinely to challenge things like the CV, right? Needing that type of document. So I think the whole AI is a question of how are we going to use this?
Yeah.
How are we going to use this in a humane and ethical way? That's a massive question, right? Because we know every time we give people tools, you have data for good and data for bad, and our experience has always been data for bad has kind of won that piece, things which haven't been great for society at large. So I think it's how are we going to do this ethically, but I think we're at that stage. It's almost like when we were first given the internet, when we were first given email, when we were first given social media. Then we had that whole phase of social media went from being a laptop to being a mobile phone, right? And we went down the mobile stage, and we went through whole generations of, well, can your page load on a mobile? Does it look okay? All those, that you've lived through those generations. I think we're at one of them, only slightly bigger, generative AI, in that the power and potential is so vast.
Yeah.
Actually, we could use it in absolutely everything we do.
Yeah.
And in some way or another. There's not a job that I know of, hardly, unless it's a very, very manual blacksmith or something. There's hardly a job that I can find where you're going, there isn't somewhere where generative AI could touch that or make it better or make it more efficient, right? There's no job I can find. So you have the problem of so much potential, and so that it's going, that piece, right, we're going to use it to single pieces. We're going to use it to write some content. We're going to use it to do something else, right? And you've seen the evolution of products. You've done it with Candidate ID. I've done it with lots of different companies. What's always interesting, Meet and Engage is one of the companies who I worked with in the past, and we always looked at the fact that chat would always be at every stage of the recruitment process instead of just being in the attraction piece, right? But for a long time, the only thing customers wanted it for, that they bought, was attraction. Now it's internal mobility, it's like candidate experience, it's onboarding, it's saying, right, let's just take this as the channel. I think this is what generative AI is. It's less about what could it do, because in reality it could do anything. It's more, I'm going to use it this way. And I think the companies that are going to win in this, the products that are going to win in this, will be the ones who figure out, how do we use our proprietary data, which is stuff that nobody else has, our proprietary knowledge, and apply it through a universally available technology like ChatGPT or whatever it is. How do we use the two bits to actually work really well? And I think in the area of content, of we've talked, I can go back like 15 years having conversations with people like Felix Wetzel and stuff, where we imagined everyone would have a personalized newspaper, which they kind of have by their phone. We just don't, it's not a paper anymore. But everyone would go, right, this is the news that you like, therefore we're going to give you this news, right? We collect that data and we do that. And we personalize the experience, and we collect information on you and make that experience personal. I think increasingly that's what content is becoming, in that through generative AI, through technology, we can actually say, here's Adam's content. This is the message to Adam. But the message we're going to send to Bill is going to be a different one. It needs to be in a different format. It needs to look different. But we need all of the content available. So, you know, simple things like I've just created some training, but I've been able to use 3 different AI apps to write the training. Now, I spend a lot of time on my prompts, so I give it the information I want it to reproduce. And what the ChatGPT does is that converts that into, adds all the these and ands, make sure the grammar is right, which for me used to be where I spend most of my time. I knew what I wanted to say, I just didn't know how to put it into content, right? I can now do that by writing a good prompt in 10, 15 minutes, but then I can take that content, or I can take a video, do a video. I can then transcribe that through some technology. I can then take that transcription to create the post and the introduction. I can then create a PowerPoint off the back of that to say, these are the words, create me, go and find me non-copyright images and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I can do a whole load of work that would have taken me 4 or 5 days in probably a couple of hours, right?
Yeah.
So I think the easier we make it to, what we've got to be able to do, and this is the content challenge that you have, right, Adam? This is the problem you have to be thinking about above all else, I think, is how do you plug into proprietary knowledge and turn it into content?
Yeah.
Right? Because the AI won't do it for you. It'll give you a suggestion, it'll create something, but what it creates might be rubbish. Right? So the real ability and value is in using your proprietary knowledge to build the right prompts, to ask the right questions and tell it what to say, right? And the more, and I'm using ChatGPT or similar for probably 80% of what I'm doing, 80% of my output of what's going out, creating an Eventbrite page, doing any of this stuff that I need to do is coming through ChatGPT. But I'm very, very prescriptive about what I wanted to do and what I wanted to think about and what I wanted to create, right? And then it creates something back, which is what was in my, it converts my head into my text. That's what Phil, I think you've got it.
I've got it. That you've given like about 3 hours worth of great information here. I've literally got to go. I've got to go and start something else. But honestly, everybody that's listened to this, you need to follow Bill on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and he's got events, the TRU Chatathon, and all sorts of different things. As you can see, this is a never-ending stream of brilliant knowledge.
And it never will end, right? It will never end. That's evolution, mate. It's not finished. It's never going to be finished.
Yes. Bill, you're absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. See you soon.
Cheers, Adam.